There's a moment in every transformation when the fear hits hardest, not at the beginning, but right after something inside you clicks, right after the meditation that opens your heart, after the moment you finally feel aligned with the future, after the realization that something has shifted, and just when it feels like you've cracked the code, suddenly the fear crawls back in. The thoughts begin racing. The nervous system starts reacting. Your body contracts. You question everything. You feel like you're regressing. But this is the moment most people get wrong, because what you're experiencing isn't failure. It's friction between your old identity dissolving and your quantum self beginning to emerge. Most people assume alignment means feeling calm all the time, that once you match the frequency of your dream reality, the rest will be easy. But that's not how quantum shifts work. In fact, the more powerful the timeline you're stepping into, the louder your survival system screams on the way in. This is biology meeting consciousness. The body's job is to keep you alive based on what it knows from the past, but manifestation by nature requires you to break the loop of familiarity and step into the unknown. Your nervous system isn't resisting your dream. It's reacting to unfamiliar signals that threaten its control. The same way your muscles resist when you stretch beyond your normal range, your subconscious resists when you stretch into a new identity, and that's not weakness, that's proof you're expanding. This is where most people collapse back into their previous self, not because they're not ready, but because they don't recognize this resistance for what it really is. A call to regulate, not retreat. A call to stabilize your frequency, not because something is wrong, but because something is working. And here's what no one tells you. Fear doesn't mean you're off track. Fear, when observed without judgment, is an indicator of transformation. It's the residue of an old self being dislodged by the presence of a new you. Let's go deeper. According to quantum physicist Amit Gawami, the quantum self is not bound by the limitations of time, space, or personal history. It is a field of infinite potential, a part of you that already exists in alignment with your highest truth. But to access this self, you must collapse the possibilities into form through intentional observation. And that observation must be coherent, not distorted by fear, panic, or the need to control the outcome. That's why emotional regulation isn't just a tool for healing. It's the bridge between your current state and the version of you who already lives the reality you desire. Joe Dispenza explains this beautifully. Your body responds to your thoughts as if they were real events. When you think fearfully, your body goes into survival. When you think in alignment with your future, your body recalibrates to that new possibility. But this recalibration isn't instant. There's a moment where your body is still addicted to the chemistry of your past, even as your mind is choosing a new direction. That's the gap, the sacred discomfort, the space between identities where your nervous system wants to pull you back and your soul is asking you to stay. So here's the truth. Staying aligned doesn't mean eliminating fear. It means recognizing fear as a signal, not of danger, but of departure. You are departing from an identity that was familiar even if it kept you stuck. You are leaving behind neural pathways that were wired for limitation. You are stepping beyond the gravitational pull of who you've always been, and the fear isn't a stop sign, it's a sign you're in motion. So when fear interrupts your shift, you don't need to start over. You don't need to question your worth. You don't need to force yourself back into high vibration. You need to pause, breathe, observe the fear without becoming it. And remember, your quantum self has already made the leap. Your only task now is to stay coherent long enough to meet it. This is the beginning of a new relationship with fear, not as something to eliminate, but as something to listen to, decode, and alchemize. And in the next section, we'll go deeper into what's actually happening in your subconscious when fear arises and how to navigate it without collapsing your frequency. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is feedback. It tells you that something new is happening inside your energetic architecture, something the old self doesn't know how to survive. But here's the paradox. The fear isn't coming from your quantum self. It's coming from the conditioned body that was trained to associate stability with limitation. This is where the leap gets real, not in your vision board, not in your meditations, but in your biology. Your nervous system wants safety. And anything unfamiliar, no matter how aligned, how expansive, how divine, can feel unsafe if it's not what your body is used to receiving. This is not sabotage. This is survival instinct. Amit Gawami calls the quantum self the bridge between consciousness and potential. It is not attached to form but to awareness. And the moment your awareness begins to shift through intention, repetition, or elevated emotion, You begin to access that bridge, but that access doesn't always feel like bliss. Sometimes it feels like disorientation, like heat rising in your chest, like tears without a clear source because your body has to catch up with. Your choice, your old patterns start to break down. The programs that were silently running begin to crash, and that crash, that shaking, that dysregulation, it means the field is receiving a new signal. That is quantum flow in action. Joe Dispenza teaches that the subconscious mind governs 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old. That includes not only your habits and beliefs, but also your biochemical addiction to emotion. So if you've been living in survival mode, hyper alert, reactive, skeptical, guarded, then even joy will feel threatening, peace will feel foreign, expansion will feel uncomfortable. The body will scream for what it knows, even if what it knows is suffering. This is why people who begin manifesting love often feel unworthy, why those stepping into abundance start panicking about loss, why those calling in freedom suddenly feel lost. The subconscious is not resisting you. It's asking, are you sure we're safe here? This is the spiritual work that no one glamorizes, the recalibration of your nervous system to accept peace as normal, to accept joy without guilt, to breathe into expansion without holding your breath, waiting for the collapse. You are not just choosing a new timeline, you are teaching your body to live there, and that requires regulation, not as a task, but as a devotion. It means noticing when your breath becomes shallow, when your jaw tightens, when your thoughts speed up, and gently getting yourself back not to perfection, but to presence. So, let's make it real. When fear arises in the middle of your shift, what's the first signal your body sends? Is it your stomach tightening, your hands getting cold, your chest closing? The key to staying aligned is not ignoring that signal. It's responding to it with consciousness. Place a hand on your heart, slow your breath. Tell your body, I know you're scared, but we are not in danger. We are just expanding. You don't push the fear away. You sit beside it, you love it, and through that love, you reclaim your signal. When you do this, something subtle begins to shift. The fear doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes data. It becomes a guidepost. It reminds you that the leap is happening not only in your vision, but in your cells. You are not just visualizing change. You are becoming the embodiment of that change. And embodiment, unlike fantasy, has weight. It moves through muscle, breath, memory. That's why it takes practice, not force, not perfection, just practice. Want to hear from you? If you're comfortable, share in the comments. What's the emotion, the sensation, or the pattern that tends to pull you back when you're on the edge of a breakthrough? When we name it, we take its power back. When we share it, we collapse the illusion of isolation. And when we see it in each other, we remember no one is shifting alone. Let's keep going. In the next section, we'll explore what's buried beneath the fear, the unconscious patterns, the emotional echoes, the forgotten wounds that rise not to stop you, but to finally be seen. The body resists, yes, but so does the unconscious. Because when you begin shifting into a new identity, the mind doesn't just question your ability, it starts bringing to the surface every fragment of self you abandoned along the way. This is why quantum leaps often feel like emotional ambushes. You begin to align with your abundance, and suddenly old voices whisper that you're selfish. You try to embody love, and unresolved shame rises like smoke. Through your chest, you commit to living freely, and a part of you tightens in guilt, as if you're betraying someone by becoming more of yourself. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is not just philosophy, it's the lived experience of shifting timelines. When you enter the quantum field with clarity, you don't just access your higher potential. You also activate the parts of your shadow that are wired into your sense of self, and they don't want to sabotage you. They want to be acknowledged, to be held, to be integrated. In the context of quantum jumping, this means that every time you leap, you awaken pieces of yourself that were silenced by survival. They may show up as fear, self-doubt, jealousy, even anger, not because you're broken, but because these parts of you were built to keep you safe in an outdated environment. They learn to shrink so you wouldn't attract criticism. They learned